everybody. Welcome to Pub Theology 2025. Glad that you are here. I'm going to put that just a little good. Glad that you're here. I'm Father Bob Johnston. I'm going to be your host tonight and helping out. I'm one of the members of the clergy team at St. Michael's. And if you're new with us or new to this event or anything else, St. Michael's is an Episcopal church that is near Preston Center. Traditional, contemporary worship, lots of services all day, and you can learn more information by going to the website at stmichael.org and learn more about the church there. I want to say something about Pub Theology. I know for a fact that we have new people here because I've met some, and what we do at Pub Theology is we are doing an event where we want to have really engaging theological topics. We want to have it in a really neutral, comfortable space. And the hope is that people will engage in this and have some great discussions that come out of it. So that's what Pub Theology is about. I want to tell you how the night's going to go, the evening's going to go here with our, in terms of how we're scheduling and kind of structuring stuff. Because I need your help and I need your input on this. In just a few minutes, our speaker is going to come up. He's going to speak for about 35 to 45 minutes. And then when he's done, we're going to take about a 10, 15-minute break. And then we're going to come back for 20 minutes of Q&A. So that's the plan with what we're doing. And part of that, you need to know that there are two different documents you should be able to see, or two different pieces of paper on your table. One is a question form that looks like this. And so we've been doing this for a long, long time. It was Theology on Tap, then Theology Live, and then Pub Theology. We've done it in lots of places, and we've learned that this is the best way to go. So as Ryan speaks tonight, and you've got questions, you're like, oh, I'd like to ask this. Write it on a slip of paper, and then during the break, we're going to come around and pick these up, and then we'll give them to him during the break. Speaking of breaks, give him a break, and don't smother him during the break, because he's going to be reading these and organizing these and getting them all ordered, and then he'll come back, and we'll do 20 minutes of Q&A, and we'll shut it off. If you've got a question that doesn't get answered, he's going to be hanging around for a while, so just come up and find him personally and have a conversation with him. That's what that one is. And the other one is a QR code so that you can use your phone to give us feedback about tonight, about all the different aspects of tonight, our speaker, and also, really important, the reason why I really want to push it, is it's a chance for you to tell us how interested you are in the topics we're considering for next year. So your input during the next 4 weeks helps us plan Pub Theology for 2026. So make sure you do, if you would do both of these, that would be awesome.
Bob, what's the other reason we need to do the survey?
Say again?
What's the other reason we need to do the survey?
Oh, well, I'm going there. Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Thank you. Maybe I was going to forget that. I don't know. The other part about filling this part out is we're doing a raffle during the break. When we start back after the break, we will do an online raffle pool that somebody will win a gift certificate to Vector Brewing, which is an awesome place. And so you want to fill one out and give us that feedback, and you'll also have a chance. Somebody in this room is going to win a really great gift certificate to Vector Brewing. So that's the other reason you want to do it. Now, our speaker, I'm going to introduce in a minute, but he's been a good friend of mine for a long, long time. Really, really love this guy. He's awesome. But that doesn't change the fact that now, after, you can ask me on a break why this came about, but for every speaker, we give a disclaimer now. Whatever he says is not what St. Michael's necessarily says, and all that. So just know that. I don't doubt that he's going to say stuff that's great, but we're giving a disclaimer on everybody at this point. Speaking of disclaimers, I'm glad to see all y'all here. It's one of the few moments when I can highlight that my identical twin is here tonight. And so, it's a reminder to you that if y'all ever see me doing something unbecoming of a priest, it's him. So just, he's over there. He's the one doing it, not me. So And so before I introduce Ryan, I also want to give a big shout out to Vector Brewing, an awesome place. They have great food. They have great beer. Highly encourage you guys to not only enjoy yourself tonight fully, but also come back and really. This is a super place, and particularly I'm a beer enthusiast. And they have great beer. I'll just tell you. Speaking of which, if you're looking for water, it's kind of back around the way. I want to make sure you know that there's you self-serve water right around the corner, around the way. So I want to make sure you know that that's available as well. All right. So with all of that, Justin, am I good to introduce Ryan? So I want to introduce Ryan Waller. And it's a pleasure to have him here. I'm so glad he accepted the invitation. Ryan is a really smart, funny, great presenter. He's one of these people who has as many degrees, I think, as anybody that I know. So I like to bragging on him before he speaks. He did his undergrad at USC in philosophy. He did his law school at SMU, so a shout out to our law school people who are here tonight. And then he did his theology degree at SMU, and he got ordained as an Episcopal priest. And then he did his counseling degree, master's at SMU. So I'm jealous of all the degrees he has at this point. He is in private practice as a therapist, great therapist in town, and he is married to Caroline. He's got 3 beautiful children, and we've had him speak. I think this is the 3rd time we've had him speak at Pub Theology, and every time he speaks, he is the highest rated speaker. Intimidates me from wanting to speak. So it's a great pleasure to welcome Ryan Waller.
There's nowhere to go but down from there. And that disclaimer was created for me, I promise you. So yeah, anything I say is not sanctioned by St. Michael or the Episcopal Church or anything. Let me get this going. No, I'm really grateful. It was so fun to be here last year. A lot of you, I think, were here last year. I spoke on mental health and Christianity. I focused mostly on the soul. How many of you were here last year? Yeah, good number of you, right? We had a good time. So I'm excited to be back. Let's have some fun. We can talk about something.
I forgot to talk about your books.
Oh, you don't need to talk about my books. Yeah, I've written some books. I'll plug stuff later if we need to. But I am also a little intimidated because, as Bob said, I've got there's some SMU law professors who are here, and he was like, "Hey, do you know them?" And I said, "I was such a subpar law student. They've got no idea who I am, so we don't need to worry about that." But anyway, I'm happy to be here. Good to see so many familiar faces. I'm going to take this off. That way I can be free. Yeah, everybody can still hear me. Yeah, okay. Let's jump right in if we can. We're going to talk tonight about forgiveness, and I want to be really honest from the get-go. When I approach the topic of forgiveness, I do not come at this as a person who feels like they're very good at forgiving. If there's anything in my life, I have been more on the receiving end of forgiveness. Like when the topic comes up for me, I don't think, yeah, I know how to let people go. I know how to forgive. What I have experienced far more is the freedom and the wonderful feeling of having people in my life who I've hurt forgive me. So I come at this from a very soft place. And I would imagine that if we're honest with ourselves, most people in this room probably feel the same way. You've been forgiven. And so because you've been forgiven, I want you to remind yourself of the ways in which you've been forgiven before we even come to this topic. Because I think that puts our heart and our mind in the right place. You with me on that? Yeah? We awake? Okay. All right, I want to tell you a story. Because there's nothing better than a story. All right, a long time ago, probably 25 years ago, there was a young child who happens to be now one of my patients. And he was with his father and his uncle. And they were in a park in San Francisco. And they were sitting there in San Francisco having lunch. And the conversation turned to a cousin that the father and the uncle had, who was older than them, and they hated this cousin. This cousin was older than them, and for their entire lives, this cousin was cruel to them. He was just one of those guys who was older and he was mean. And the father and the uncle of my patient hated their cousin. And they spent all of this time in the park that day saying kind of terrible things about him. They were recounting his life and they were just reminding themselves of how awful he was. Right? They just didn't like him. Now here's what you need to know about the cousin. The cousin who they didn't like ended up dying an early death. He died in his mid-20s. And that didn't change the way they felt about it. Right? When they recalled his life, even though he kind of died an early death, they still hated this guy. So they're sitting there in the park in San Francisco one afternoon, and they're just recounting how much they hated him. Now here's another detail that you need to know about the cousin. Back in San Francisco when he was living, he drove a really unusual car. He drove a green Yugo. Okay? Which if you know anything about that, you know there weren't very many of those that were sold in the United States. In fact, I looked it up before I came to talk tonight, and like at last check, there were like 400 of these in the United States. All right, so picture this. My patient, who's a kid, he's sitting in the park with his father and his uncle, and they're talking shit about the cousin who's dead. And as they're doing that, all of a sudden, the uncle says, "Holy..." And they look up, and what do you think comes around the bend down the street? A green Yugo. The exact model that the cousin drove. Silence befell them. My patient said, nobody said anything for minutes. And then finally, his father said, "You know, our cousin kind of had a hard life. His own parents actually died in early death themselves. And he had to go and live with our grandmother. And that must have been hard." And they took a few more minutes to reflect on his life. And they thought about him in a way that my patient had never heard them think about him. And then after that, my patient says he has never heard his father nor his uncle ever say a negative word about their cousin ever again. If you're familiar at all with analytical psychology, we would call that a moment of synchronicity, where something in the outer world matches an inner reality and communicates something to us that we otherwise didn't know. That Yugo came around and those two men thought to themselves, maybe we should let something go. Maybe God or the universe is breaking through to communicate something to us that otherwise we couldn't have known. Now, I know that some of you are sitting there thinking, that's weird. I don't believe it. Or I don't care. It's a coincidence. Let me tell you a story from my own life. Last winter, I was getting takeout, and it had been like a quiet kind of Saturday night, and I went to grab Mi Cocina right here in Lake Highlands, and it occurred to me as I was thinking about that night that I had come through a difficult time in my life. And I can remember as I was walking back with, bag in hand back to my car, the words of Albert Camus came to my mind. And they were this: in the midst of winter, I found there was within me an invincible summer. Now, you have to know that those words, who many of you I know are familiar with, have long caused me pain. Because in my life, I have often thought of myself as somebody who could have that invincible summer within me, but more often than not, I have discovered that I don't have it. But I felt that in that moment, and I thought, yes, I've got that. It's within me. So I drove home kind of smiling, feeling good, and then things got really, really weird. I got home, and while my wife was setting the table for dinner, I walked back to my study. And I walked into the room, and I've got a lot of books, huge nerd, and I grabbed a book at total random. It's a book that I had no intention of reading. I just reached for it. I opened the book, and do you know what I found on the page? In the midst of winter, I found there was within me an invincible summer. I was overwhelmed with emotion because I knew in that moment that what I was feeling was being confirmed by God. There was something that was breaking through my reality to tell me something very important. A moment of synchronicity. Okay, I want you to hold those synchronistic moments because we're going to bookend everything that we're going to talk about tonight with them. Okay? So, let's talk about forgiveness, right? And I don't want to talk about the cheesy kind of forgiveness that's so often talked about, particularly in religious settings, where somebody does something and we feel beholden just to say, it's no big deal, no worries, let's move on. I want to talk about how in the world do we forgive other people when they really betray us, when they burn us, when they attempt to destroy our lives. So if we're going to talk about this, and at least from a Christian perspective, let's begin at the deepest source of it all, which is Jesus. Okay? Jesus was obsessed with forgiveness. Right? If you know anything about the Gospels, if you've spent any time within this religion, you know this. Now, I gotta be honest, talking about forgiveness in a bar is either the perfect place or the worst place, depending on how many grudges you're holding and how many drinks you're nursing. But I know that Jesus would have been right home talking about this. I mean, the man's first miracle was turning water into wine, and he spent so much time hanging out with the drunkards that people accused him of being a drunkard. I know a little bit about that. In the Gospels, Jesus tells this story. He said, a servant owes a king 10,000 talents. Now, let me put that in perspective. 1 talent was about 20 years wages for a laborer. So the guy owes about 200,000 years of wages, right? It's like if you worked at Starbucks and you owed $1 billion. Like, it's an impossible debt to pay. It's just not going to happen. So the king calls him to settle up. And the servant comes and he falls to his knees and he says, be patient with me. I'll pay you back everything. Which is ridiculous because what, is he going to live for 200,000 years? But the king has compassion. He doesn't set up a payment plan. He doesn't garnish his wages. He just forgives the whole thing. He wipes it clean. He says it's gone. Now, you would think that the servant would run out of the palace, free, right? And say, hey, drinks are on me. It's all good. But what the servant does is that he goes and he finds another servant who owes him 100 denarii, which is about 30 months' wages. And he grabs him by the neck and he says, you better pay me what you owe me. Now, when the king hears about this, he's furious. He calls the servant back and he says something that should chill us to the bone. He says, I forgave you everything that you begged of me. Shouldn't you have mercy on the servant as I had mercy on you? And then he hands him over to the jailers, which in the Greek, the word is torturers. And he says, you're going to be with them until you pay back everything you owe. Which, remember, is never. Which means he's going to be tortured forever. Now, I don't think that we are to interpret that literally. I think that what we are supposed to take from that is that when you and I choose to not forgive other people, we condemn ourselves to be tortured for the rest of our lives. Jesus ends the story with this zinger. He says, this is how my heavenly Father will treat each of you unless you forgive your brother or sister from your heart. See, when I was a kid, I thought, oh God, if I don't do this, then I'm going to go to hell or something, and this is what's going to befall me. No, it's psychological. You will be trapped in your own mind if you refuse to forgive. Jesus was very serious about this topic. From the cross, as he's dying, right? He says, forgive these people who are doing this to me, for they don't understand what they're doing. He was relentless about this. He lived more than 2,000 years ago, and what we're discovering now through psychological research is that he was absolutely right. If we don't forgive, we trap ourselves. The Greek word that Jesus used for forgiveness was aphiamai, which literally means drop the rope. So if you can picture like a tug of war with resentment, you're pulling and you're straining, and Jesus just says, just drop it. Just let it go. If anybody in the room is involved with Alcoholics Anonymous, then you really get this. The big book, which is the kind of Bible of AA, says this. It says that resentment is the number one offender. It says it destroys more alcoholics than anything else. Many of you have heard this line before, but when you hold on to resentment, it's like drinking poison and hoping that somebody else dies. Now, the big book has a line that really, really haunts me, and it's this. It says this: if we were to live, we had to be free of anger. Not it would be nice if, not ideally we should try to, but if we were to live, we had to be free. For folks that are in recovery, forgiveness is not some spiritual extra credit. It is literally oxygen. It is how they survive. Okay. So everybody essentially knows this, right? Like, forgiveness really matters to Jesus. So what? Like, you're thinking, Okay, I got it, right? So what do we do? Okay, all right. How do we do it? And this is where I want to go now. How do we dive into forgiveness? Well, here's good news. Forgiveness is a skill. It's not a feeling. It's something that everybody in this room can learn to do. And if we learn to do it, forgiveness creates possibilities that did not exist before. So let me tell you a little bit about Mary Johnson from Minneapolis. In 1993, her only son was murdered by a 16-year-old named O'Shea Israel. And when Mary watched O'Shea get sentenced to 25 years in prison, she said she felt rage that could have burnt a hole through steel. And so for over a decade, she lived with a bitterness that made her ill. She says she couldn't sleep. Life felt pointless to her. She had no hope. Now, 12 years later, and I want you to remember that, 12 years into the sentencing of the person who killed her son, she felt a nudge to walk into prison and meet her killer's son. And she says when she walked in, she ended up embracing him. And she says, when I got up to leave, all of the hatred that I had left me. Now here's where the story gets really extraordinary. Today, O'Shea and Mary, they live next door to each other. They speak at schools and organizations together. They co-founded an organization that focuses on forgiveness and reconciliation. Now think about that. Her act of forgiveness didn't just free her. It created a whole ministry that now transforms lives. Now really think about that. Because without her act of forgiveness, all that you have is an angry mother and a dead son. But with forgiveness, you have something that is completely impossible coming into existence. And the only way that I know how to describe that is that is participation in what I would call the divine life. And I want to come back to this because ultimately the argument that I want to make tonight is that when we forgive, we participate in the highest act of creativity that exists in this world, which is we create something out of nothing. And the only beings that are able to do that are God and humans. Forgiveness. There is nothing else like it. Now I gotta tell you, and I know what a lot of you are thinking, you're like, dude, pie in the sky, man, you're sounding like a preacher, quit it. And you're right. Not everybody finds their way to forgiveness. I had a client that I worked with years ago, and she had been engaged, and she was in a relationship for about 10 years. And right before they were gonna get married, like a few months, she discovered that he had been unfaithful to her for almost the entirety of the 10 years. And so the work that she came into my office to do was to decide, should I marry this guy or should I leave? Right? And so we did that work, and she ultimately made the decision to call off the wedding. Right? That was her decision. And after she did that, she moved on with her life. She was a very successful lawyer. She changed cities. She made new friends. She had other relationships. She moved on. But then she came back a few years later, and she said, even though I've moved on, I'm still so angry. Is it virtue or a weakness? She said it's a weakness. I said, yeah. That's why you're stuck. And she never moved off it. If we remain in a place where we see forgiveness as a weakness, then we make ourselves prisoners to our past. Not necessarily because of what happened in the past, but because of what we believe about the past. If we don't allow ourselves to forgive anyone, we think in that moment what we're doing is we're not going to let that person off the hook. But what we're doing is we're keeping our own selves on the hook. The late priest and author Henry Nouwen once said, "By not forgiving, I chain myself to a desire to get even, thereby losing my freedom." And I think that my client was chained to that desire. I think she thought that by holding on to the anger, she made herself strong. But what she was unable to see is that by holding on to the anger, she made herself a prisoner. And I understand it. I mean, I'm right there with her. I admitted at the beginning, I'm not good at forgiving anyone. I understand completely why she would want to do that. Okay. So Frederick Luskin, I don't know if anyone's ever heard of him. He's a psychologist who's done a lot of work at Stanford, and he founded the Stanford Project of Forgiveness. And he goes all around the world teaching people not only why they should forgive, but how they should forgive. And I want to share with you a little bit of his research. Because again, we've talked about why we should forgive. Okay, Jesus commands us to forgive. We understand the pain that not forgiving brings, but still the question is out there, well, how in the heck do we do it, right? So Luskin tells a story about a guy who, his name was Mike, so he says in the book. And he was one of those guys who, he worked for a company, and the company had promised him that if he kept doing so-and-so and so-and-so, he would achieve a certain level of recognition or get a promotion. And eventually, that didn't happen. And he got fired, right? And so Mike came to this training, and he was pretty bitter. And he said, look, I cannot forgive what these people have done to me. And so here's the hypothetical that Luskin used. He says, okay, let me say something to Mike. He said, okay, Mike, what if we deposited $20 million in a Swiss bank account? And that $20 million was yours so long as you decided to stop having your grievance story about the people who denied you your promotion. Like if they had an ability to get inside your mind, do you think that you could forgive them if you could have the $20 million? And he said, well, yeah. My mom didn't raise a fool. I could do that for $20 million. And he said, exactly. Forgiveness, which you think sometimes you cannot give because somebody has done something that is unforgivable to you, is not actually unforgivable. It's because you don't have the motivation to forgive them. But if we could find the motivation, then we could do that which is impossible. So some people hear that hypothetical and they're offended by it, right? They say, money? Money? No. There's some things that have been done that are so horrific, to offer me money is to insult me. And he says, okay, now here's a graphic image. He says, what if there's a gun pointed at your head? And if you don't forgive, the trigger is pulled. Could you forgive then? How bad do you want to live? I know that's extreme, but let it play with your mind. Is it really that people have done things to us where we are captive and we cannot forgive? Or is it that we don't really want to forgive? I think most people want to forgive, but they don't know how. So he breaks it down a little bit further, and let me dive into this. Bob, where are we at on time?
We got about 10 minutes.
We got about 10 minutes. All right, we're going to make it. How are we doing? Are we okay? Are we bored? Are we into it? We need this, right? Horrible. Okay. All right. So Luskin, if he were here tonight, here's the first thing he would say to us. If you actually want to figure out how to forgive, here's the first thing you have to do. You have to change your grievance story. So you have to stop telling yourself the version of the story where you're powerless. Instead of she broke me, he hurt me, I'm the victim, you've got to become the main character. You've got to recognize that you are still the author of your life regardless of what has happened in the past. Are you alive in this moment? Then you have power in this moment, and nothing about the past can control you if you choose so. The second thing he would say is this: forgiveness is not about the person who's done something wrong to you, it is about you. We do not forgive to let anybody else off the hook, we forgive to set ourselves free. Okay? Please remember that. We're going to come back to this. Forgiveness is about you. The third thing he would say is we got to start small. You can't start with the huge stuff. I was reminded of this a few days ago. Well, no, it was a few weeks ago. At my office, on the street right in front of my building, it's become a four-way stop, but for years it's not been a four-way stop. So for years, you come down the street, and I don't have a stop sign. So I can come down, I can turn left, I can go into my parking garage. And for years, other people have thought that I needed to stop. And so many times I would come down, and people would kind of like, do the thing, and I would just very, pridefully turn in front of them. The other day, this happens. And I'm going through, and this guy comes through, and I'm indignant. I rolled down my window, so pompous, in the middle of the intersection, and I said, "Hey, I don't have a stop sign." And he said, "Yeah, you do." And I said, "No, I don't." And he said, "Yeah, you do." And I looked over my shoulder, and guess what? 2 brand new stop signs. And they even had those like flags on them to let you know they were new. And I said, "Well, those must have been put there today." He said, "No, they were put there a week ago." And I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah, happened to me too." And I said, "I'm sorry." And he said, "It's okay. I forgive you." And in that moment, as small and tiny as that was, it made me feel so good. After I felt like an idiot, right? But that guy, he was practicing forgiving in the small moments, and it made a huge difference to me. If we can practice letting people go with little things, he ran the stop sign, it prepares us for the bigger things. All right, I gotta keep moving fast here. The other thing Luskin would say here, yeah, we got time, is that he would define forgiveness as a way for you and I to choose peace. That is ultimately what forgiveness is all about. Like, why should you forgive anyone? Do you want to live in peace? If you want peace, we forgive. I'm going to skip ahead to something else because I want to make sure we get there. I want to say this. Yeah, let's do this. Forgiveness is not just about personal liberation. It's about peace, but it's about so much more than that. If we want to take seriously the task of forgiveness, then we understand that forgiving people actually brings about reconciliation on a communal level. I don't know if you remember, but a few years ago, there was a shooting in an Amish community. And literally the day of the shooting, the members of the Amish community went to the shooter and they said, "We forgive you." And in the media, there was a lot of criticism about this because they said, this is ridiculous, this is not real, this can't be substantive, it can't last. And the Amish community said, look, this is what we believe. That regardless of what happens, if we want to be a people that are ultimately about bringing other human beings always and forever together, then this is the path we have to choose. Period. I'm not saying I'm on board with that, not saying I would do it, but it's amazing that human beings choose to do it. Now, let me give you a disclaimer here, because I do think it's important. Forgiveness doesn't always mean reconciliation in an individual's life. Okay? There are times in which we are hurt, and we can still choose to forgive someone, which means we can let it go because we can choose peace, and that does not mean we go and enter into another relationship with them. Some people are not safe. Some people have done things to you in which they don't deserve to be in a relationship with you. Forgiveness does also not mean pretending that it doesn't hurt. It doesn't mean we're just going to sweep it under the rug and we're just going to spiritually bypass the thing and be religious people. No. Forgiveness is ultimately about allowing yourself to have the power to reclaim your life. That's what it is. That's what it is. Okay. I've only got 3 minutes, so there was more I wanted to do, but I'm not going to do it, so let me do this instead. I want to talk about forgiveness in the end as divine creativity. I think that we all get to keep score in life with who we think are kind of incredible people. Some people admire athletes. Some people admire academics. I admire creatives. People that take something out of nothing and they bring forth a song, or they bring forth a movie, or they bring forth a novel. And I think that's what forgiveness allows us to do. Because when we're holding on to hurt, and I know a good deal about this, when we create a story in our mind where somebody screwed us over, when we ruminate on that over and over again, then we know what the ending is, right? You ever done this? Where you play the story over and over again in your mind about how you're going to get revenge, or what it is that you're going to do, or what that person deserves. You know the ending to the story. But if you're willing to say, there is more to life than what this person did to me, and they don't deserve to control me, then what you do is you open up possibilities that didn't exist before. I think this is really beautifully captured by there's a Hawaiian ritual that was popularized in the show The Pit. Anybody seen The Pit? Yeah, I got some hands, right? At the end of life, and there's another doctor, Dr. Ira Biak, who did some work on this, but I think he's got it backwards. They say at the end of life, there are 4 things that are important to say to a person. You say thank you. I love you. I forgive you. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I forgive you. Please forgive me. Now, in my limited time, what I would like for you to do is I would like you to think about those words and not that you have to go and say all of them to somebody. But would it be helpful in your life if you said one of them to somebody? Just take a piece of that forgiveness. And to think about that, what matters the most at the end of life is to not only forgive, but to ask for forgiveness. There's such reciprocity there. Speaking of reciprocity, here's the end. The client that I told you about at the beginning with the Yugo, he told me another story, and it goes like this. It began when he was a child. He was outside, and there was a green lizard. And like a lot of kids, he went after the lizard, and he cut its head off. And after he did that, he felt a tremendous amount of guilt. He felt horrible that he had taken this lizard and he killed the lizard for no purpose. And so he carried around that guilt for months. Until at a certain point he could no longer stand it. And so one afternoon he went into his grandmother's room, who he was closest with, and he confessed to his grandmother about what he had done. And his grandmother looked at him with compassion and she said, "You are a child. You were experimenting. And while what you did is not right, you are forgiven." And in that moment, and I mean in that very moment, a baby green lizard crawled out from underneath the chair that his grandmother was sitting in. Synchronicity. Forgiveness is the highest act of human creativity. And God wants us to know it. My friends, if you find yourself trapped in anger, if you find yourself eaten alive by resentment, and all of us at times do, I implore you to allow yourself to let it go. Not because what the person did to you was okay, not because it didn't wreck your life, but because you deserve to live in this present moment fully alive, full of all of your freedom and all of your power. So may you go forth from this place feeling the love and forgiveness of God. Cheers.
Wow, thanks, Ryan. All right, we're going to take a little break, and then we're going to come back for 20 minutes of Q&A. If you've got the question forms, please fill them out and just hold them up. We're going to have volunteers going around picking them up. We'll see you in about 10 or 15 minutes.
No way to ever get through all of these, but I've got nowhere to be tonight, and I don't start till a little late tomorrow, so if we want to talk afterwards, I'm around. Okay. But I'll try to make it through as many of these as possible. And if I don't answer your question, it's not, please don't take offense. I was trying to collect some, kind of on the same theme. Okay, here we go. I'm still having trouble forgiving the producers of Lost. please advise. Talk to Sopranos fans, okay? We're still dealing with the black screen, which I actually think is the greatest ending of all time. I didn't see Lost, so sorry. Okay, what's the best way to teach young children to forgive? Yeah, that's a good question. Ask the kiddos what it feels like when they're forgiven. What do you feel when mom or dad or whoever says to you, I forgive you? What is that like, right? You want to put children in the place of empathy, to take the perspective of another person. And so if they can remind themselves, oh my goodness, it feels so good when someone else forgives me, that's going to empower them to want to give that to somebody else. It's all about teaching empathy, right? All about empathy. Okay. This is good. Times which hurt and can choose to forgive but don't enter into a relationship with them. Okay, where's the line? How do you set the boundary? How do you not trigger them? The main thing I want to say here is triggers, which is a very kind of activating word in our culture these days. Triggers are for the person who is triggered. We are all responsible for managing our own triggers. Now, I like to use the word activator. Like if something activates me or something triggers me, right? That is my responsibility to deal with. If you trigger me, that's not on you. That's on me. I've got to notice in myself that I'm triggered and then deal with the emotional response. So if you're in a relationship with someone and they say, you're triggering me, say, okay, I understand that. You can get curious about it, but you're not responsible for managing anybody else's trigger. This is where social media psychology has gone off the rails, right? Everybody's a narcissist and everybody's responsible for our own triggers. No. If you're triggered, that's your responsibility, okay? We can circle back if we need to, but there it is. Okay. Oh man, here's one I dealt with today. What do you tell a young child when a parent hurts or mistreats them from the other parent over and over? Okay. I can't go into depth about that, but here's what I would say. The difficulty when one parent says something negative about another parent in front of a child is that a child inherently understands that they are on this earth because they were created by mom and dad. And so if mom says something negative about dad, on a certain level, the child interprets that as a message to who they are. So when parents ridicule one another in front of a child, what you have to understand is that you're communicating to the child that they're bad. And I know that's not what you mean to do, but that's how the child interprets the conversation. So if you're in a situation where you're going back and forth with a parent or a co-parent, and it's hard, and I get that it's hard. I get it. I'm an LMFT, I deal with parents and divorce, I get it. It's tough, it's complicated. But if you can try and remember that the way that you communicate with the other person directly affects the way that the child understands themselves, then maybe that'll soften your approach. Don't think about the other person. Think about what it is that you're going to say and how it affects the child. And if it's not something that you want the child to feel about themselves, don't say it in the presence of the child. Okay? I had to ask a set of parents this morning to please God, stop it. It was bad. It was real bad. Okay. Is an apology required for forgiveness? No. Let me go back to the heart of my message. Forgiveness is for who? Is it for them or for you? It's for you. Y'all, people are not going to come and apologize to you. They're just not. I mean, God bless you if they do. Like, congratulations, you won the lottery. Forgiveness is something you do for yourself. If you wait on an apology, what you're doing is you're saying that my forgiveness is dependent on an external locus of control. That is something outside of me. Now you can do that if you want, but that's like I like cryptocurrency, right? So if I want to be happy, then I'm going to wait on Bitcoin to go up. I have no control over what Bitcoin does. This group's looking at me like I'm nuts. S&P 500, is that better? Like, yeah, find something, right? What we want to do for the most part in life is we want to look at our life and say, okay, what is it that's within my control? And that's what I want to focus on. Because if I make my happiness dependent on anything that's outside of my control, then I'm at the whim, right? I don't know. Maybe it goes up, maybe it goes down. I can't do anything about that. Forgiveness is something you do for yourself. It does not matter whether they ever offer an apology. I'll be very honest with you. The person who has hurt me the deepest in my life, and I can't talk about it, I won't talk about it. Not because I don't want to, but maybe someday I'll have the power to talk about it. And I won't be sued. There's no apology coming. Chose to forgive. And when I made that decision, it changed my life. An apology would be great. But at this point, it really doesn't matter. Try and offer the forgiveness without the apology and see what happens. I think you'll surprise yourself. Okay, I love this one. At first I hated it, but then I loved it. What you bind on earth, you bind in heaven. What you loose on earth, you loose in heaven. This person is quoting scripture. Does this scripture speak to forgiveness? What is your reading of this scripture? I don't know who you are, but I like you. Here's a very old idea that is not often spoke about. I'm a big fan of a guy called Michael Meade. I don't know if anyone reads him or listens to him. Any Michael Meade fans? Nobody. God almighty. Look him up. Oh yeah, okay. He's a mythologist. And he often says, there is no redemption that will be found in the next life that is not found in this life. There is no redemption that will be found in the next life that is not found in this life. Which makes that scripture really relevant. If you want to experience forgiveness, if you want to let things go, if you want things eternal to happen to you, it's not enough to say, well, I'll just wait. What you bind in this life is bound. What you loose in this life is loosed. If you want to feel the freedom that is offered by God, you do it now. You want to feel what it's like to be constricted? Don't forgive. You want to feel what eternal forgiveness and liberation is like? Do it now. There is no redemption to be found in the next life that is not found in this life. Sorry, St. Michael, I need the disclaimer. I get that I'm outside the bounds of Christian theology. I am a priest. I've studied, but I'm outside. I get it. Okay. How do you ask for forgiveness? This is a good one. Oh, man. When my daughter was a teenager, I brought someone into my life who was destructive to all of us. I don't think my daughter has forgiven me, even though that other person is long gone. How can I ask her to forgive me? Well, I don't know who wrote that, but the first thing I would want to say is that the person you brought into your life, you didn't bring that person into your life with the intention of hurting your daughter. So you got to remind yourself that when you were making that decision, you were making that decision with the best information you had available to you. So easy to go back and judge ourselves in the past. But here's what I would say. This past weekend, I made a big mistake. Like, synchronicity. I was never going to say anything about this. At a camp out with my son, they graduating the 5th grade. That's not graduating. There's no graduation. I told him, even high school is not graduation. That's expectation. College, maybe we're graduating. Still expected. Go be a doctor, a lawyer. I'll call you a graduate. I don't know. But 5th grade. And I came into this past weekend, I'll be really honest with you, and I was struggling. And I had a tough week, and I just kind of wanted to be alone, and I was kind of angry, and I was not the best version of myself. And I spent the vast majority of the weekend kind of isolating and alone. And afterward, I was talking to my son about it, and he said, he's like, I was kind of sad that you weren't like around. You were kind of like in your car, like in your room. And it was hard. And what I had to do was ask him about the pain. I said, buddy, I'm sorry. I said, I wasn't the best version of myself, and can you tell me about how I hurt you? Can you tell me what it felt like for me to not be around? Did your friends say anything? What was that like? I had to talk to him. I had to ask him for forgiveness. Go to your children. For whatever you've done, it doesn't matter. They're human beings. It doesn't matter what age they are, but go. Name what you've done. Be as honest about it as you can possibly be. Don't try and hedge. Don't try and make it sound better, but just be real. And ask for forgiveness. Ask this child, what was it like to have that person in our life? And let them speak. If you give her an audience, if you let her speak, it's the most powerful thing that you can do. Okay. Do you see a difference between apologizing and asking for forgiveness? Yeah, it's a big one. Again, to go back to like 12 steps, if you in 12 steps, when people make amends, right? They go to people and they say, okay, here's what I did. Is there anything I can do to make it right? That's different than forgiveness, and here's why. That doesn't put a burden on the other person, right? So forgiveness, when I ask for forgiveness, I'm actually asking you to do something, which is different than coming to you and saying, hey, I did X, Y, and Z, that was wrong, I feel horrible about it. Is there something that I can do? So the onus stays on me. Forgiveness is a shift, right? If I'm asking you for forgiveness, I need you to do something for me. So I would say that's the difference there. Okay, how long does it take to move from anger to forgiveness? As long as you need. There's no time on this. And I'm really grateful for this question, for whoever asked it, because what I don't want anyone to walk out of here thinking tonight is, man, that guy was like making like forgiveness sound like we should just all get about it and get on it. It's gonna make life so much better. Y'all, I am, how old am I? I'm 43. Oh, God almighty. I feel it. It's hard. I got stuff that I am still angry about and I'm working on. And there are times when I feel okay about it, and there are times where it creeps up on me. There's no timetable. Life is short, life is long, life is complicated. But I'll tell you this. A rule that I learned a long time ago that has helped me when anger sticks around for a long time is that I should not have conversations with people who are not in the room. Yeah. The gray hairs are laughing because they get it. And the balds are laughing because we get it. When you find yourself, right, rehashing these conversations, these arguments, notice it in yourself. And ask yourself, is it worth it? How long has this been going on? Do I need to do it any longer? Sometimes it takes a really long time, and I don't want to diminish. I know that there are people in this room who have been hurt. Like, there are people in this room, I guarantee you, that were sexually abused, psychologically abused, financially abused. You're cheated on. People stole money from you. Like, I promise you, there are real hurts in this room. And for anyone to tell you you need to get through it in a particular amount of time, it's ridiculous. Life's really complicated. But again, to come back to your freedom, if you find yourself going over things that you don't want to go over anymore, ask yourself, how much longer do I want to do this? How much longer do I want to feel the pain? You're in control. Remember, Luskin, you're the author. You may have been a victim, but you don't have to have a victimhood mentality. Okay, can you talk about someone, a friend who needs to forgive something, but they won't? Again, I would ask them, here's a helpful question. We skip past this. When someone's holding on to something, ask them, is what you're doing helping or hurting you? Is it helping or is it hurting? It's a very basic question that we often skip past. I do it to myself all the time. But it's basic and it matters. So is withholding your forgiveness doing something positive in your life, or is it causing you to suffer? If it's causing you to suffer, why in the heck are you still doing it? It's like that $20 million question. If you're not going to forgive and you're not going to get the $20 million, think about the suffering of not having $20 million that you could have. Like, that would suck. Right? You want the $20 million. Is it helping or is it hurting?
Ryan, 2 questions.
2 questions, okay. 2 questions. Goodness, but there's so many more. My counselor friend says it's wrong to ask a trauma victim to forgive the offender. She says data shows it's detrimental. How does that sit with Jesus' command to forgive? Jesus got it right. We got a problem in this country, and it's being backed up by data. I spoke about this last year, and people challenged it. No matter how deep the offense is, here's the radical challenge, and this is kind of the talk titled, if we're going to come from a Christian perspective. Jesus is on the cross, and they're killing him. He says, they don't know what they do. I'll forgive them. If you've been traumatized, in no way am I saying that you need to make it okay what happened to you. Someone's physically, sexually hurt you. But it still comes back to this question. What do you want to do with it? Do you want to allow the person who took advantage of you in the worst possible way to continue to have power over you? Or do you want to flip the table and have power over your own life? Not power over them, but power over your own life. And what I would say is that not to bypass anything, we have to go all the way through the hurt. We have to deal all the way with what happened. Please hear me on that. But I don't think because someone did something horrific to you that they deserve the right then to have a place in your mind for the rest of your life where you can't forgive them. I don't think that's fair to you. And I think that's where we're getting it wrong these days. Okay, I know I probably got time for one more. This is it. Yeah, goodness. I got two here. I was going to talk about Jesus forgiving Judas, but I can't do it. How do these principles apply to forgiving ourselves? Isn't that the real question? God Almighty. I struggle with self-hatred. So in my darkest moments, I don't like who I am. And I have struggled with it since I was a little boy. And it's still something that I struggle with today. And sometimes I don't know what to do with it. And there are sometimes I look in the mirror and I can't look at myself. Because the person that I see when I look at myself, I see all the things that I've done and that I've said and that I regret. And the thing that was probably the most freeing to me is that my own father, who I love, and my own father, he's my hero. He's made a lot of mistakes. He told me that he feels this way too, at times. And the way that we get through it is that we remember who God is. And God looks upon all of us with unconditional love. And if I am not the kind of person who can allow God's unconditional love to come upon me, then I'm not the kind of person who can do anything that I've talked about tonight. Which is to say, if I can't get really serious about forgiving myself, I'll never forgive any one of you. And that's where the rubber meets the road. It's bullshit otherwise. Every one of you's got something deep inside of you which is hard to look at. What I want you to hear is that you are forgiven. You are loved. You are accepted. And because of that, you are invincible. And you can forgive anything that comes your way. But only if you can turn inward and allow yourself to feel the infinite and unconditional love of God. Peace to you.
All right, thanks, Ryan. That was amazing. Thank you so much, Ryan. I want to thank Justin Brooks and the people who helped plan tonight. I want to thank the people who helped set up for tonight, particularly our AV team, Brian and Leah. Thank you so much. I want to invite you back next week. We're doing this for the next 3 more weeks after this. Next week will be Dr. Elizabeth Kincaid, and her topic, if you haven't seen it, is Jesus commanded us to love our enemies. What about war? She is a PhD from Notre Dame in moral theology, so it's going to be a great talk. I encourage you to think about who you might invite for next Monday. So I encourage you to be back here. We're going to be here for a bit. I encourage you to stay, have another beer if you're in a good place, and hang out. Ryan's going to be here. Come get your question if you didn't get it. And good night. We'll see you next week.